Hello, um, everyone out there. This is Stanley Quate, and I would like to give you a presentation on my final project work in General Biology 2, which is Biology 11B. Um, it's very important and amazing to know that our actions as humans have consequential effects um, in our environment and eventually on us. Whatever we do, be it emitting CO2 into the atmosphere, be it habitat fragmentation, be it whatever actions that we do through even technological advancement, always will find a way to come back to hunt us as humans. So my focus of discussion for this project is disease contractions residing in wildlife areas versus partially destroyed areas. So basically, the research I wanted to find out whether this is actually true. That if you reside in places where habitat is not actually wildlife is not actually destroyed, um, will disease outbreak or disease contractions be fewer compared to living in places where fragmentation has actually taken place? Yeah, so I basically made the assertion that a healthy environment through conscious positive human behavior will eventually translate into healthy plants, animals, and an indirect healthy conditions for humans. Um, there exists a relationship between human behavior through fragmentation, pollution, and other factors and its consequences on humans. I think I already mentioned that. And these statements are actually supported by scientifically researched articles by Thompson R. and et al. In 2010. As a result of that, there's a consequence on evolution effect which translates into pathogen diversity, increasing probability that pathogens will spill over in human communities will become high. And this is why it is really important. It's actually dear to me because I'm realizing that there has to be some kind of educational collaboration between those in the health sector or those who work in the health environment to be able to address these issues so that we can be able to achieve a healthy environment uh, for plants, animals, and basically we humans as well. Therefore, the papers sought to investigate the premises raised and the impact on disease contractions. Humans living in partially destroyed wildlife in rural areas vis-a-vis national forests will be studied. We pick those areas because basically national forests are places that have not been tampered with or that have not been destroyed compared to places that are trying to be evolved to become urbanized. Um, the researcher made a statement that there's a vicious cycle of human behavior and pathogen diversity, which is at play because there's a chain reaction within human actions on wildlife and pathogen spillover. And the researcher thinks that that should be termed the environmental wheel of disaster because it goes in cycles and comes back to come and uh, hunt humans. Whatever they put into the system is what actually impacts them eventually. So the biological hypothesis is that there's actually a relationship between disease contractions among humans residing in wildlife areas and those living in partially destroyed or fragmented areas. As a result of this, a researcher claims or predicts that disease contractions amongst humans tend to be more prevalent. That means there'll be a more increase in disease contractions when humans actually reside in places that have been partially destroyed, for example, rural areas, as opposed to living in national areas that are close to national forests that hasn't been destroyed. So basically, to actually undertake such study, the project will actually study five wildlife sites, national forests, where humans reside, and they will be taken from the northeast of the United States, the western part of the United States, Midwest of the United States, south and southeast regions of the United States. Each location, each of these five sites, will have 1,000 people to be sampled A questionnaire will be designed and given to the residents that reside there to ascertain, their living behaviors, their daily attitude towards hygiene, coupled with how frequent they report sick. A record of disease outbreak for the five group, totaling 5,000 residents over a period of 1 year shall be observed. Um, and a year is actually chosen, or we made a decision to choose a year um, so that we can observe the entire full 4 seasons. Eventually, these same methods that we've decided to apply will homogeneously be applied simultaneously to another um, five groups of people living in partially destroyed wildlife area. Then, after a period of a year, these two groups, these two different regions will actually be swapped. So the five sites in the national forest areas and then the five sites in partially destroyed will be swapped after a year to observe, how frequent people are going to report sick or disease contractions that will occur in that period. So basically, in a year, we're going to observe what is happening to residents living in the national forest areas, and then residents are living in partially destroyed areas, and then there'll be a swap, and then another observation will be made for both groups. Therefore, the dependent variable will be the number of diseases infected cases, while the type of location of residence um, will represent the independent variable. However, it must be noted that other variables can be real causes of the dependent variables not explained in the data. Therefore, I mean, those kind of variables are known as the confounding variables, and those will possibly be poor sanitation, pollution, weather conditions, seasons, and climate changes. The two statistical tests that we believe will be more beneficial to this project is the t-test. And we decided to use this test because it actually measures and compares the means of two groups. And the ANOVA test will also be used because we are dealing with multiple samples as well across those two groups. As far as results is concerned, um, it, we found out that there's a sufficient evidence that actually supports the researchers' claim that there's a high number of infection of diseases when wildlife was not preserved. The data actually revealed that 5,000 residents sampled around national forests within the five regions of the United States had less recorded number of diseases as opposed to those who resided in partially destroyed areas. Um, Furthermore, the sample of 1,000 residents living around national forests did not frequently call in sick compared to each sample of 1,000 residents living in deforested areas. Therefore, it is evidential that when the ecosystem is destroyed, biodiversity is actually impacted because predators do not have bountiful prey to feast on. The number of predators actually is reduced, translating to an increase in host competence, and this is what will allow the mode of disease transmission. Sorry. Thus, a high number of disease prevalence will exist. Um, um, a decline in diversity of species arises since a spillover in disease transmission becomes apparent, and that can be found in Santana Seed 2020 scientific research article. Consequently, the research had observed that the west and northeast regions of the United States had national forests with highly diverse species. Keystone species were observed in these spaces, coupled with an efficient and complex interactive food chain at different trophic levels within the trophic pyramid. These regions had a very stable ecosystem and explains why residents were less infected with disease cases. I want to say that this is dear to my heart because the study is actually revealing what we thought it was going to look like, and therefore it is actually scary to know that whatever our actions are as humans is what actually impacts diseases and actually comes back to haunt us. And I believe that if anybody is out there, um, I plead that my project is funded so that I can be able to carry out the study to be able to make a change in the world that we live in, on the environment that we live in, to the benefit of humans and to be able to save as many lives as possible. Um, here's the table. The table actually reveals everything. Residents um, residents in partially destroyed wildlife location. You can see those in Northeast recording very high numbers compared to those in the West. Very high numbers, and even overall, those living in partially destroyed wildlife recorded a very high number compared to those that were living in natural forest areas. And the t-test value, these are the statistical values, the degrees of freedom. The p-value is actually less than 0.05, making this thing very, uh, p-value is less than 0.05 and less than alpha level 5%, indicating statistical significance. That the researcher fails to accept the null hypothesis because there is sufficient evidence that supports researchers' claim that residents in partially destroyed wildlife areas will record the highest number of disease outbreak. And we have a further graph to actually show us those in blue, those that live in a partially destroyed area. And you can see that is a very high number compared to those living in national forest areas. You can tell um, in both sampled groups. The results reveal the importance of human behavior and how that impacts the environment. This was my earlier plea that if anybody is out there, I'll be grateful my project will be funded because the results reveal the importance of human behavior and how that impacts the environment. The results reflect the proposition that a positive human behavior will translate into a stable ecosystem. Plants and animals in different trophic levels through the hierarchy on the trophic pyramid are healthy when there exists a conscious effort of human actions and behavior into the environment. In addition, when wildlife is not destroyed, it affects the ability of the complex interactions that exist within the food web. A clarion call is needed to educate health-related workers about the significance of their roles. This will motivate humans to be educated with positive behavior actions towards the environment. In a nutshell, the actions of humans have consequence on the environment and eventually have an impact on them. So this brings an end to my presentation. And this is a project that is actually dear to my heart, and I'll be grateful if it will be funded so that we can be able to cause a change in the world that we live in. Have a great time. Thank you. Bye.